You're about to see something really, really, really well done. I mean, one of the great comic books of the last few years. She takes the pills and friggin' she becomes like a super phoenix. This is one of the great DC characters. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show and welcome to the summer of Superman. Guys, today is actually Wednesday, the day Superman actually comes out, but I haven't seen it yet and I won't be seeing it until the weekend. This really is a video of me looking forward to the Superman movie and what we're going to see in the Superman movie. So if you're watching this after watching Superman, I haven't seen it yet, so just know that. I heard that in this Superman movie, we're actually going to see quite a bit of the rest of the DC universe, right? This Superman movie for DC is like a huge launch point into this new DC extended universe on the screen, right? They've plans apparently for all kinds of films. Even, a guy like Clayface, which is one I'm actually really curious about to see how they handle that. But among the many characters that are going to make an appearance, big or small, I don't know, in the Superman movie, James Gunn's Superman, that is Supergirl. And Supergirl is one that I'm most curious about seeing on the big screen because of how she's recently been handled in comic book. Guys, Tom King's Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, is one of the best comic books I've read in recent memory, okay? And that's really saying something. And I'll tell you, Supergirl is a character I wouldn't normally read, right? I'm not going to the comic book store or browsing comics online and saying, oh, a new Supergirl, let me pick that up. It's just not for me. I wouldn't expect either. But Tom King is a writer I really like, and he's one that's written so much great stuff in the last 10 years or so. The Visions and Mr. Miracle and his Batman run, although I didn't think it was his best work, I did think it was interesting. Certain arcs were quite good. When I saw he was doing a Supergirl book, I was like, what's Tom King going to do with a character like that, right? What's he going to bring to that? What kind of heart, what kind of soul, what kind of humanity can he bring to a character like Supergirl? So I picked it up. And of course, reviews for the book have been, incredible. And the awards it's won have been incredible. And we know now that not only is Supergirl going to make an appearance in James Gunn's Superman, which comes out today, the day I'm filming this, but she is going to have her own film, and it's going to be based on this very comic book. So what better time to have a look at it than now, where we're going to see where we're going to see Supergirl in Superman, and where we're going to, of course, see her continue her journey on the big screen in the DCEU later on this year. Oh, and I should say, the character of Supergirl is not a new invention, made for our times. Supergirl has been around since, I want to say, 1969. Back in Action Comics, way back in the day, as like I can't remember, cousin of Superman, another survivor of the Krypton disaster, right? Fallen to Earth and so on. So this is not a new character by any stretch of the imagination. She's been around a long time. She's played a pivotal role in other DC events in the past, namely Crisis on Infinite Earths, which is one we haven't looked at on this channel yet, but we will. Actually, as far as I remember, there's a really nice reprint coming. I think it's a DC Finest reprint coming of the Crisis on Infinite Earths event later this year. I want to say it's due for release in October. When it arrives, I'll definitely be showing it off. I actually have it behind me, but it's in Italian. And I know you guys want to see it in English. So when the English one comes, I'll show it to you. So anyways, this Supergirl, she's not new. And that's just something to keep in mind, that this is a character with as much history as many, let's say. So anyway, the issue I want to show you from Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, from this little miniseries Tom King wrote, is actually the second issue, because I think it really illustrates how good an arc this is and how really cool Supergirl can be on the big screen later this year. So guys, I'm sure a lot of you have read this, but if you haven't, you're about to see something really, really, really well done. I mean, one of the great comic books of the last few years. Tom King, like I said, writing this thing, but Bilquis Evely, what a cool name, on art, does an absolutely incredible job, and you're going to see that. Not only is the cover killer, not only do you get a sense of the cosmic, because this really is a cosmic comic, and you know I'm a big fan of cosmic comics, but you get a sense of Supergirl herself and this sword wielding Supergirl, right? There's a curiosity instantly just on that front cover and that red sun, of course. You know, there's so much going on just on the cover. And by the way, Crypto the dog, I know from the trailers, from the talk of Superman, which you guys have probably seen by now, makes an appearance in the film as well. Well, here he is in the comics too. So it's this second issue that I want to take you to. And just if you haven't read it yet, guys, a little bit of spoilers coming up. So, you know, if you don't want any spoilers, definitely pick this up before watching this video. It's really, really good. Anyways, the story starts, and we're jumping to the second issue, so I'll just introduce you. The story starts with this young girl. She lives on this faraway planet. Her name is Ruthie. And on the very first page of the very first issue, I'll just flip there too for you. Her father is killed by this villain, Krem of the Yellow Hills, I believe his name is. And I shouldn't have done that because now I can't find my spot. Oh, yeah. And for the rest of that first issue, she's basically seeking out a friend to help her on her quest for revenge against Krem, to avenge her father. You know, it kind of reminded me right away of True Grit. Did you guys ever see that? The original one was with John Wayne. And the remake had Matt Damon in it, among others. Really good. Anyways, reminded me a bit of True Grit. Well, she comes across Supergirl, who's basically on vacation, right? In a land with a red sun where her powers will be, atrophied, where she can enjoy herself almost in a human kind of a way for her birthday. She ends up being attacked by Krem of the Yellow Hills, that killer, and he accidentally steals her spaceship. So now they're kind of really on their own, these two, Supergirl and Ruthie, on this path for vengeance. And our story picks up with them in the second issue, traveling by caravan or something. You're about to see it here in a second. And Ruthie, quite a bit of exposition. Guys, I can't tell you enough. I almost can't explain it, how good the writing is. Let me read it to you a little bit here. Just take a look for a second at these panels. You know, Ruthie, who hasn't struggled with this, sitting on a bus or on an airplane and having someone next to you fall asleep in their head, leaning on your shoulder? You know how annoying that would be. So you get her dialogue in this situation, the reaction of her face all through these panels. But listen to this this inner monologue. Just listen to this. The rock farm on which I was born, weaned, and raised was not by any measure a well-perfumed environment. Between the animals and my 6 dear brothers, a fusty bouquet of dung and sweat often sat heavily in the air. So you can imagine she's smelling it right now, right, with this freak next to her. Bathing was a once a harvest day affair, with all 7 of us taking turns, going one after another into the same small rusted cistern. Being the youngest of the brood, I went last into the water, which was brick brown by the time I entered its chilly depths. In terms of cleanliness, the results of such a routine were often mixed at best. Once a year, my treasured father would take us into the city for high prayer, and we would giggle at the pampered city folk tucking their noses as our family passed. They were unaccustomed to the musk of authentic work, we'd say, noting with some gratification how our stench marked us as the rooted heart of our Kingsland. All of which is to say that when I inform you that I could no longer tolerate the putrid smell of that Hull ferry, I am not contrasting it to a spoiled childhood awash with rosed lather. So there it is right there. So much backstory, so much personality in the character of Ruthie here, struggling to, keep a straight face, to keep a clear head, let's say, on this Hull ferry across the stars. And here it is, where it opens up, right? Where we get this zoom out. We see Supergirl asleep next to him. Everyone packed tightly into this, what looks like a space bus, right? And she explains herself to this creature hey, do you mind not sleeping on my shoulder? And he's like, oh, you're small. Are you tasty? And she's like, listen, buddy, you better not, okay, try to eat me because I'm traveling with the Maid of Might Supergirl. You might have heard of her. He's like, no, I haven't. And she explains, like, listen, just be warned, Buster. Any false moves, and you're going to be dealing with her. And she has a power you would not believe. She is in possession of nearly inconceivable power. A challenge to me is a challenge to her, and thus a death knell to you, sir. So choose your next undertakings wisely, for they shall determine your fate upon this august plane of existence. Really well spoken character, really well written. Anyways, he decides to, live another day. And here it takes us again into the stars. And guys, I really like a cosmic adventure. I really like when a writer and an artist can take us somewhere we haven't been before. And often this is only possible in comic books. So I'm really curious to see how even a scene like this, where we're just building character, how this is going to translate to the big screen. Because I think it's actually a really difficult thing to do, is to bring this sort of, how are we going to get the internal monologue, right? To bring this to the big screen is not going to be an easy thing to do. Anyways, there's a bus stop here, basically, where they get a little stop over and they find themselves in this, almost Mos Eisley cantina situation where they're sitting at a bar, they're going to have something to eat, and an alien approaches Supergirl and he's like, hey, are you Supergirl? And she's like, well, I have an S on my chest. I'm wearing this fancy skirt. Who else might I be? And he's like, well, Superman, but my brother's into the Phantom Zone. So if you're Supergirl, I have to kill you. And she's like, oh, really? So she beats the heck out of him in 2 seconds, right? And the observation of Ruthie in this moment is so good. Again, I almost, wish I could read you the entire thing. Listen to this. Throughout the months of our travel, these types of encounters were neither infrequent nor particularly interesting. Wherever we went, and it seems to me we went most of the places there are to go in this bewitching universe, there was some cantankerous fellow who had a problem at some juncture in his life with Superman. Naturally, being the pusillanimous types, for who else has such troubles, they hesitated in seeking direct retribution on the Man of Steel. However, when they came upon his distaff cousin, their chests puffed up with eagerly renewed pluck. It's not hard to understand, really. They presumed her to be his soft underbelly, and they were pining to grab a sharp spear and try to shove it into the blood and gut. Now, I spend enough time around Supergirl to know her better than most, maybe better than all, if truth be told. So let me say with some manner of expertise that she was a woman of disparate qualities who bent her own sense of self to fit the situation, which is to say in a simpler manner. It is true, she was many things to many people, but she was never soft. And that's really, really good, isn't it? Anyway, she defeats this alien, and it turns out the bus has hit a zone where there happens to be, and I didn't see this when I first looked at this page, a gigantic space dragon. So the bus driver's like, hey, is that Supergirl on board? Look at the look on his face. Maybe can't you do something super or whatever, save the day? She's like, well, I'm not charged up, okay? I've been under the wrong sun for a while. I can't just go out there and fight him. So she goes to the back of the bus and she's like, anybody got any red pills? And somebody fesses up like, oh, I have some, but I have a prescription. And she eats the pills. She does the drugs, right? These drugs are kryptonite encased in dissolvable lead, red kryptonite. She takes the pills. She explains, or is explained here in the voiceover and the captions, that some people see visions. Kryptonite's visions become realities. She takes the pills and she becomes like a super phoenix. She flies out into outer space and she busts right through that dragon. So you get a little picture of really what she's capable of. And by this point, into the second issue, I'm all in. I'm like, this is one of the great DC characters. This is one of the great DC comics. There's so much heart. But okay. So here's an example of it. So they head to the bathroom. Girls go to the bathroom together. You ever heard this? And Supergirl is washing her hands. And Ruthie's like, what are you doing? And she explains, like, what do you mean? What am I doing? I'm washing my hands. And Ruthie has never done this. She asks, is it a necessity? And it began, as most things begin when you're dealing with Supergirl, with a moment of kindness. So Supergirl teaches her how to wash her hands. And look, again, these panels where you get these very sequential moments. You know, the water hitting the hands, the soap being applied, the sudsing up of the hands. This taking care of what Supergirl does here for this little girl is something I thought was very human, like a mother and daughter. And why is she doing it, by the way, right? Why does she care? There's something. She asks her, after the tragedy of your planet's destruction, did you seek to avenge the death of your family? So they have this thing in common, right? The death of her father and the destruction of Krypton. And Supergirl replies, no, I didn't. But in her response, Ruthie thinks, I heard a whole life of regret. So we come back to where we started, with yet another freaky alien resting his head on Ruthie's shoulder. And she again explains herself. And this time, she gets a much more negative response. And this time, Supergirl reacts. But it's a reaction in such speed that Ruthie doesn't even see it happen. She just sees the reaction. Like, he goes from this very aggressive posturing to like silenced, and then slowly tilting his head back and falling asleep. You know, first there was a botheration, then there was Supergirl, then everything was peaceful once again. It's excellent. And it's, again, this really great sequential storytelling. You know, that's comics, right? Sequential storytelling. And it's masterfully happening here. It's not only excellently written, like really well written, with really distinct character voices and creativity and, you know, soul, but it's really well done art. Like, this is sequential storytelling, and there's a reason it's so highly rated. Anyway, it finishes on the worst note of them all. So if your heart isn't broken yet, in the fight against Krem in the first issue, Crypto the dog, gets an arrow shot through him. And so does Supergirl. But this arrow that's covered with hunting poison doesn't affect Supergirl. She recovers, even though she's been living under the wrong kind of sun all this time. Crypto does not survive. So she has to bury her dog. And she does it with tears in her eyes, right? And she says to Ruthie, hey, that offer still stand? That offer for vengeance against Krem of the Yellow Hills? And Ruthie's like, sure, of course. And Supergirl says, well, let's do this thing then, because that guy killed my dog and stole my ship. Game on. And that's where it ends, right there. And at that point, Supergirl accepted the offer. So these two, you know, if the DCU can capture even a fraction of the greatness of Tom King's Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow for the big screen, they've got a real winner on their hands. Now, I don't know yet how good the Superman movie is, because this is the day it comes out and I haven't seen it yet. But what I do know is Supergirl could be that dark horse character of the DCU that could really come out flying out of the blocks and become a real new fan favorite. Guys, if you're Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow fans, or if you haven't read the comics, you really owe it to yourself to go and pick this one up. It's not underrated, but it's a real surprise package, and it's one that really stands out among its peers once you do end up reading it. So, more Superman stuff coming up soon on the channel, guys. It's the summer of Superman. There's so much else to look at. By the way, guys, I actually talked about my favorite Superman story like almost as soon as I started this YouTube channel. It was one of the first videos I did. You can go and check that out now. My video on Superman for All Seasons, one of the great Superman stories ever told. As usual, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week.